Hello viewers, and a very warm welcome back to another episode. This is part 6 of a series of that Commodore Pet. This is the Commodore Pet that was completely smashed up and crushed that I won on eBay of June of last year, I think it was. It was looking pretty grim for this machine. It was completely destroyed pretty much. The monitor was gone altogether and everything was warped and twisted and bent and in pieces. But me being who I am, I do like a challenge. And I thought it would make a very interesting project, something to document. I know some of you have already been following these videos. For those of you who haven't, I shall put a link in the description below, so you can have a look back at those if you want to. So some of you are probably wondering, have I managed to get it working, or have I given up? For answers to those questions and more, stay tuned and we'll find out. Okay, so in the last episode we managed to get the video circuitry going, and I got kind of a checkered board effect on the screen. It turned out that the character set was completely duff on that part. And in this video we'll play out just like the last video as the timeline unfolds with the journey I took through each of the repairs. As before, I filmed this kind of as a video diary, so I wasn't concentrating so much on the video and audio quality. I was more concentrating on the repairs and getting the actual machine working. So I apologise if any of the camera work isn't too good. I've tried to keep it short and straight to the point, so hopefully it's interesting and informative at the same time. Hopefully some of you out there that are doing your own Commodore repairs in the future will find some of this useful. I know I certainly will, going looking back at it if I ever go down this journey again. So without further ado, let's get back to it.
Okay, and we're back with a new fault. There we go. And this is with two new RAM substitutes which have been confirmed working in another pet, identical pet. And this is all I'm getting out of the pair of them. I'll just switch the computer on and off quickly. For a split second before it clears its memory, I'm getting some characters. I've removed every single removable IC. It can just be pulled out because it's got a socket. I've just left the CPU in, character set, video RAM, and 4 lots of RAM there, because the pet will boot with just those 4. So the next thing we're thinking, talking to other people, is it's these video buffers here could be suspect. B3 and B4, SN74LS244N. I have been testing them, and this is what we get with a logic probe, all high-low outputs, apart from pin 10 and pin 20. Pin 10 is low, pin 20 is high, and 19 is a high pulse. These were the roughest two looking ICs on the board when I first got the computer. Obviously I have cleaned them up slightly. There you can see I've cleaned the pins with a fiberglass pen, so they're looking a lot better than they were. But it's got to be something to do with the video buffer now, because I've tried pretty much everything else. Tried swapping out the RAMs for different ones and I'm still getting different problems. The EEPROM there is new. There's a new socket there for the EEPROM, a new socket for the video RAM, and a new socket for the CPU. With the old RAMs, there, well, out of all of them, just these two here. The one marked O, I get all O's, and the one at the top there, with an arrow on, I only get a full screen of arrows. But paired up with these other two beneath each other, which is pretty much, I only get a checkerboard effect, well, nearly a full checkerboard out of those two. But with those together, I do get a full screen of characters, just uppercase characters. But even when I turn the computer on and off, nothing changes for that split second when it clears the RAM. The most life I'm seeing is out of these two here, which, like I said, have been confirmed working in an identical pet. So next off, we'll remove these two and put sockets in and see how we get on with that. So we'll do that next. Okay, so we're all set up, we're ready to begin. I've decided I'm not going to remove both at the same time. I'm just going to do one at a time. We'll try B3 first. We're going to try it with the new IC in place to see if it makes any difference, and if it doesn't, then we'll move on to the next one. It seems pointless to remove both of them if only one of them is potentially faulty. So here we go with the snips again. If you haven't seen my previous video, this is how I do things now. It's a lot better for me personally. You don't end up damaging the board. I'm quite heavy-handed. go, it's out. But it's a new replacement there ready. A lot more modern, 2014 date mark on this one, but it is still a Texas Instruments chip. Right, let's get that cleaned out now and remove those pins. Got some flux paste this time for this one to help get those pins out a bit easier. So I'll probably take a bit more heat on this one. It's on a thicker trace. I just saw that swell up there then. There we go. Look pretty much clear, don't they? Apart from that top left one, second one in. Might have to clear that one a bit more. We'll try dropping the socket in now, see if it goes in. Is that going to go straight in? It has. Sometimes they go in first time, sometimes they don't. They'll push a pin up slightly. You just have to go back over it and suck it out a bit more. Still a bend over a couple of pins so it doesn't move. Just want it to be on there just long enough for it to flow through the hole, through the via, so it gets through to the other side. Probably should have had a bit of a practice first. I'm starting this today because I'm feeling a bit tired today. It's probably not the best time to do something like this. I'm eager to see if it will make any difference. See a little bit of support there, look. So a little thing like that can cause a short. That's it, you ruined it. It's where it splattered back out from the solder sucker. And here's the new chip, SN74LS244N. Let's pop that in, shall we, and see. I'm going to plug it in and see if it's made any difference. Such a satisfaction of putting in a new IC. And of course, it can be changed in the future now it's got a socket, if anything ever goes wrong. Right, let's go and plug it in and see if it's made any difference. Embarrassingly, I just broke a pin off of one of my new substitute RAMs, so I've had to make a new leg for it. Missed the hole, didn't I? And I took it out and bent it and not noticed. How silly of me, but at least I managed to fix it. So, has it made any difference? Let's switch it on and see. Nope, it's exactly the same. That's disappointing. I guess we'll try B4 next and see if that has any effect. So before I do that, actually, I'll just go over it with the logic probe on B3 and see if there's any difference to its outputs compared to what it was doing before with the old one. Okay, let's start at pin 1. So before we were getting high-low pulses all the way down to 10, which was low. So now it's just a high pulse. Oh, that's... So that's just low, like it was before. But on that first one, it's just high pulse. Whereas before it was high-low. Check them again. Certainly making better contact than before. Because the pins were corroded, it was hard to get a good contact. Sometimes that can ruin your readings. So, pin 20 was high before on the old one. It still is. And then pin 19 was high pulse, and that is. So that's just high pulse now. These were all high-low before. So there's some changes there then. But still no change on the screen. So we'll plot that next one out now. B4. That one there. And see if that makes any difference. There we go, that looks pretty clear. Let's drop that socket in. There's the other IC in place now, the 74LS244N. So let's turn it on now and see if it does anything different. Oh, that's interesting. Going to turn that off because it's making some sounds I'm not happy with. But nonetheless, it's doing something different. I'm just going to check the board over at the back just to make sure there's no shorts anywhere. Okay, I've just had it on. I'll just pop it back on again. It seems to be a bit more stable now. There we are, I'm getting some characters now that I wasn't getting before. This is what I was only getting on the refresh screen when it cleared the RAM. Now it's just staying like that. So that's interesting. I think what I might try next is my timer board Pet RAM ROM tester. See if we get any results out of that. So let's do that next. Well, there it is in place. Basically this will replace the RAM and the ROM, or either or. So let's see what happens when you turn it on now with that in place. Nothing. Just a little bit of flickering on some of the characters there. That's me pressing the reset button. Right, next thing I'll try is the original RAM, one that I got the full character set out of, and see if that makes any difference. I've got a pair of the original RAM there, and I'm still just getting the full screen of characters but nothing else. No lowercase or any other shapes. So I guess it's back to the drawing board. I'll report my findings to the person I've been talking to and see what they can suggest next, if anything.
While I was awaiting parts to arrive, I thought I'd give the board a good clean with some IPA. The board was pretty ditched. This will also help dislodge any particles that may be stuck between the IC legs, causing any shorts. This did help clean a lot of the dirt and dust off, but still a little bit remains.
Well, here we are, we're back again. And my 4 new buffers have turned up very quickly as well, I might add. It only took a couple of days to arrive. And while I was on eBay, I went on to Little Diodes to have a look at their new old stock 6550s there. They coded week 21 of 1981. They had 2 left, and I thought I'll grab them while they're there. I thought just in case I need them. Going forward to test out the video RAM socket, because I've not been having any luck messing around with all the RAM I already had. And at the same time, somebody approached me and said they have this available, this solution here, an all-in-one solution for the video RAM. And I also had from them another character set and some system memory, 48K there. I'm getting a little bit tired of messing around with these other RAM substitutes that I've been looking at. I bought 6 of these now, and none of them are giving me the results I want to see. Even though they've been tested, confirmed to work on an identical pet by the seller, I'm just not getting the same results. And I'm pleased to say that I'm now getting some better results with this video RAM substitute. So let's just switch it on and have a look. And there we go, I'm now getting a full screen of random characters, not just letters or blocks, as it were. So that's a lot better looking. I'm pleased to say as well that I've confirmed that this character set is working, the first one I bought, from the same seller that sold me these, because I'm getting exactly the same results on the screen with that character set. So now I have two just in case, and obviously they are reprogrammable as well. So the next thing to do is to sort out these buffers. It's these two here next, G5 and G6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, G5 and G6. So we're going to be doing those next. I'll take those out, put sockets in, put in the new buffers, switch it back on, and we'll see what happens. So stay tuned. I didn't see the need to film the whole removing procedure this time because obviously you've seen me do it before, but I just wanted to show these actually dropping in without any messing around, because usually I end up having to go over a couple of holes again, but there you go, straight in this time. Just got to solder those on the back now, and then we'll power up and see if there's any difference. Okay, there you have it, the two new buffers are in. For G5 and G6. Let's switch it on and see if anything has changed. We've got a flickering across the screen now. I'm not talking about the vertical scan line from the shutter of the camera either. Some little flickering lines going across. I wonder what that means. Let's just switch it on and off again. Still doing it. And that's with the new RAM, the new video RAM, and the EEPROM. The only other thing that's in there is the CPU. Well, I just thought I'd remove these to see what happens with them out. Obviously I've got some more flickering on the screen. I'll pop them back in again, and now it's stable. So I don't know what that was all about. It's kind of been a bad connection because obviously it's new sockets and new ICs. Let's just switch it on and off again. Oh, that seems to be okay now. Must have just been a glitch. So I shall report my findings back to the person I'm speaking to on the Vintage Federation forum, computer forum, and see what they suggest next. I think they're going to say to me, remove the last two buffers, which is those two there, H8 and H9. That's probably going to be the next thing to do. But I'll see what they say first, and we'll see what we do next. Okay, time to remove the final two buffers, these two here, H8 and H9. I'm going to remove these two, socket them, and put new replacements in. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be the last two I have to replace, but we shall see. Okay, so there you have it, H8 and H9 are now replaced, those two buffers there. Let's see if it's made any difference. Nope, exactly the same, but at least it's not made it any worse. So next up then we'll start doing some tests regarding with the buffers, and probably use the Nop Adapter.
Another test that I did, just to make sure that the video circuitry was working correctly, and the rest of the subsystems to do with that, was a little test using 8 resistors. After removing B3 and B4 buffers and the video RAM themselves, you get 8 resistors, plug each end of the resistor into the data lines of the 2 video sockets and put the other ends to 0 volts, so ground. If this works correctly, you should get a screen full of @ symbols on the screen. I was a little bit hesitant to do this test because it looks a little bit barbaric, doesn't it? Plugging all those resistors in that way and shorting them to ground. But I'm pleased to say that the test worked out quite well. in that we found out the circuitry is working perfectly, as I now have a screen full of @ symbols. So this little test did indeed confirm that the video circuitry is working as it should be. One of the other devices I've been using throughout testing this PET is a Nop Adapter. This is a device basically which stops any instructions getting through from the CPU to the rest of the board. It also has a red light on it, which will be on for a moment when you first turn on the computer as the CPU resets itself, and then it should be constantly flashing. There's also a little green LED on there to show you're getting your 5 volt power. It effectively turns the CPU into a counter, which is useful for debugging and checking out data address lines. Okay, so up next we're going to be replacing G4 there. After doing quite a lot of testing around this area, we're using the Nopper to test G2. We found out that all the data lines are okay on that one, so it looks like it's going to be G4 next, and we'll see how we get on with that. Hopefully this will be it, fingers crossed. I've got a good feeling about this one, I don't know why. It's getting to a point now there's not much else left to change out. So let's get it out. Here we are. And it's time. It's now time to replace it. Right. And there you go, that's me reenacting the moment of joy as it's finally working. I couldn't believe it. Unfortunately I wasn't filming at the time, so I thought I'd do that little bit of an insert there for a bit of fun to reenact that moment. I couldn't believe my eyes when it was finally presented with the command prompt. I was just absolutely blown away after spending so many months just seeing nothing or not seeing what I wanted to see. At first I was just getting random junk before that actually happened on the screen. But after a few power cycles and reinserting some ICs, suddenly it just came through and I just couldn't believe it. Finally I was seeing what I wanted to see, seeing that command prompt. I was just so amazed. I couldn't take it in at first, and after seeing nothing but junk on the screen for so long, it just seemed like it was never going to happen. So what happened next? I quickly typed in a little small program, 10 print your name, 20 and go to 10 and so on, to see if that worked, and it did, I'm pleased to say. The next thing I thought about was the original ROM set. Do any of them work? Because as it is at the moment, it was using the Timewith board, the PET RAM ROM tester board, so you can substitute either the RAM or the ROM or both at the same time. So the next thing to do is to test the actual EEPROMs themselves and see if they're actually functioning. As it is, they're not actually booting at all with these in. I'll be having to use the Timewith board to actually get the computer to boot, using basic 3 I think it was, or 4 on that device. Using the PET test I was able to identify each EEPROM and put it in its correct socket, because somewhere along the line I'd gotten things a bit backwards and I started from left to right instead of right to left and labelled them up incorrectly. Using this software I did find out that 2 of the EEPROMs were in fact dead because they wouldn't let the computer boot at all. Whilst doing more tests, I was having problems with the amount of RAM that was being indicated. Sometimes it would only show 4K of RAM, where the RAM module that I've got in place there is actually an 8K RAM module. If I remember rightly at the time, I think it was G3 suspected could be a problem for that. There is actually a small bridge pin as well in between G2 and G3 that enables the 4K or 8K. If it's got the bridge pin in place, it's enabled for 8K. If it's missing, it's set at 4K. Somebody suggested a couple of small programs I could type in to poke and peek at certain parts of the memory. When I typed this in and typed run, it just seemed to hang. Another problem I thought might be the case could be a dry joint somewhere in some of my soldering. So I took the board back out and inspected it. Couldn't see anything wrong with it under a magnifying glass. I gave the board a little bit of a tap and brushed it out. I did notice some small metallic particles drop away, so I think it's quite possible that they may have been causing a short. Since reinserting the board after doing that, I'm pleased to say I'm getting 8K all the time now. Now it was time to tackle the tape deck, and this tape deck was in quite a bad way. It was in many pieces, as you can see here in these pictures. This has taken a bit of a brunt of the impact from when the computer was crushed initially. Unfortunately, a couple of small pieces of plastic are missing, one piece on the side, and also the hinges of the lid itself. First thing I did was take it to pieces to have a look inside, see just how bad things were. The motor housing was bent. The rubber bushes where the motor was mounted had perished. Obviously the belt was long gone. The PCB looked intact though, which was good, I'm pleased about. Unfortunately, some of the metal stanchions that hold the PCB in place were bent over from the pressure of being crushed, and one of them actually come out of situ, but I managed to squeeze it back into place and screw everything back down and bend the other one over without snapping it off. How the PCB survived this I don't know, but somehow it did. I did actually buy a Sanyo M1540X cassette player because I thought this might be useful for parts, but upon looking inside there's not a lot of similarities actually. So the next thing I did, I thought let's see if it actually powers up, because the PCB looked okay, there was nothing damaged on there, no components broken off. So I plugged it into the Pet and turned it on, and sure enough the motor did the initial spin, which I was quite surprised. So at least things were looking good so far. The next problem to get over would be the rubber bushes. I need to replace those. I've got a set of O-rings here, so I sort of had a look through those to see if there's anything I could use. I thought I might need some washers as well. It turns out that 2 or 3 O-rings on each brass bush was enough to hold the motor in place. I'd already bought some belts previously for some other projects, popped a belt on that fitted perfectly, and sure enough pressed play and it went round. It's playing. Fast forward and rewind work as well. Everything looks okay inside. I was quite surprised actually that the rubber clutch mechanism hadn't perished. The grip wheel there, but that looked absolutely fine as well. I don't think the tape deck had actually had a lot of use. The little plastic flywheel that holds the belt on one side unfortunately is corroded down the centre spindle. Some corrosion's gotten into that plastic and it's expanded obviously, because as rust does it expands outwards, and it's cracked the little plastic flywheel there. But strangely enough it hasn't broken off, it's still in one piece. So fingers crossed it'll carry on working for a while. Next thing to do is to have a look at the case itself. As I said before, it was in a number of pieces, and one of the standoff locators there had been broken off, so I undid the screw, glued that back on, glued the case back together with some super glue. At first it didn't seem to want to take, but after a while it did take, and I'm pleased to say it's now back in one piece. So the next thing up is to fit it back in the case itself, which wasn't quite as straightforward as I thought it was going to be. Unfortunately the Pet case is still warped in places. I couldn't completely get every single ding out of it. The mounting area where the tape drive fits in was slightly deformed, and it's putting a little bit of pressure on the cassette housing. How it didn't break while I was reinserting it I don't know. So I took the tape deck back out of the computer, took it to pieces, had a look inside to see if there was anything in the way, anything bent. Cleaned the pinch wheel with some IPA along with the capstan, and it still chewed the tape. So I took it back out again, inspected the capstan, took it out of its mount to see if it was bent, but it looked absolutely fine. It came out easily enough as well. Normally if they're bent you'd have a little bit of resistance trying to pull it out from the brass bushes. But once I put it back in again and tried it with a different tape, a C15, it seemed to play okay, but it wasn't loading anything. So I'm not quite sure what was wrong with it at that point. The next day, when I went back to it, I put a tape in again, typed in a little program, 10 print go to, the usual, and it actually played it back. It loaded the information up. I was quite surprised, but I have found that any other tapes that I've made, it does seem to struggle. I get errors, So at the moment I'm using my external data set to load any software. So now it's working, let's take a look inside, shall we, and see what's actually left of the original computer and what's making it run right now. I have since bought Basic 3 on some EEPROMs, so it's now running under its own steam, so to speak. And I'm pleased to say that the peers and the VIA, along with the CPU, are all working, all the original ones that actually came with the Pet. But sadly, a total, I think it was around 14 logic ICs I replaced in the end, along with the original character set, not including the original RAMs. As mentioned before, 5 of the ROMs are reported the correct identification, but I'm yet to test them until I have a full set of Basic 1. In a future video, I do plan on trying to read the contents of the EEPROMs, because I recently bought a Willem EEPROM reader programmer, so that's something else I need to learn about, which will be quite interesting. Hopefully I'll be able to program 2 new EEPROMs to replace the 2 that are faulty for Basic 1 for those ones that are missing, and then try and boot the computer in a future video and see if the original ROM set actually works. Sadly, it's looking like all of the 18 6550 RAMs are faulty. I did test them in the video sockets quite early on actually, to see if anything was working, and all I was getting was a checkerboard effect on pretty much all of them apart from just 2. So that checkerboard effect, if some of you already know, indicates basically that they're faulty and they're not doing what they should be doing. I have decided not to reinstall the composite video board back in on the back there, in fear of damaging anything at this moment in time, because I don't know if anything on that is faulty that could have caused any problems on the video logic side of things. But probably sometime in the future I will reinstall that again, because it is actually a very handy thing to have, and I really could have used that while I was doing all my testing with this computer, because turning off the CRT on and off so many times doesn't really do it any good. One of the problems I did encounter towards the end of the repairs with this was the keyboard wires. When I first plugged it all back in, I didn't test every single key at first, but when I did try and use a couple of different ones, I found quite a whole row of keys didn't work, to my despair. I thought, oh god, what now, what next, you know? And then I noticed a couple of wires had come away on the keyboard wire where it joins into the PCB. So I thought, oh, that'll be a simple fix. Unfortunately it wasn't, it didn't turn out simple at all in the end. As every time I soldered one wire back in, another one came off, and I ended up having to resolder every single cable. And they didn't seem to be like to be soldered either. The cable was very stiff on the Commodore Pet. It's not as flexible as it is on the Commodore 64 and the VIC-20. And there's no cable strain relief either, like there is on the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64. I mean, on those keyboards it's just a piece of sellotape, but that really does make a difference. So after resoldering all the cables back on, shortening them ever so slightly, I put some hot glue around the connection point onto the PCB. I've actually seen this done in more modern equipment by other manufacturers, and it seems to work quite well. So I thought, well, I'll try that out, see how we get on. The other alternative was to remove the keyboard wires from the PCB, put in new cables that are more flexible and more modern, and then heat shrink and join them on to the existing old cables. It would have made it a little bit longer and taken away some of that strain slightly, but I'm pleased to say that using the hot glue gun seems to have worked so far. So the condition of the computer itself, I'm not actually planning on doing anything else with it. I'm going to leave it like this. This is a true testament of what it's been through. It's got its battle scars and it can wear them with pride, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe one day I'll do a little bit of the welding that needs doing around the back. But as it is for now, I'm just happy that it's working. I'm just overwhelmed that it's actually doing something, you know, and it's actually working. I never thought I'd actually see this thing up and running, so when I did see it going, I just kind of halted things slightly and just stopped for a moment just to take it all in. Because I've had experience in the past where I fixed something, tried to do something else and it stopped working again. So let's power it on. There we go. Still reading its 8K of RAM as well, thank goodness. One question I did ask myself while I was working through this was, would I do this again? If I'd have asked myself that question properly, probably a month ago or even December time, I'd have probably said no, because it was getting quite stressful at some points through that time period. But looking back now with hindsight, yeah, I probably would do it again actually. I went into this quite blindly with rose tinted spectacles. I am kind of the glass is always half full kind of guy, and I always see the potential in things, whereas other people just look at it and think, oof, no thank you, and just give up in a minute, you know, kind of thing. But no, if I saw another computer in this state, I probably would have a good go at it. I've learned so much along the way, and I met some really interesting people. I must give a shout out again as well to the Vintage Computer Federation forum, because it was them that's helped me get through diagnosing the problems with this through the logic circuitry first, and then getting me through to the command prompt, finally getting that up on the screen. Okay, so how much did I spend on this? Some of you are probably wondering. Well, quite a lot of money. The computer itself and all the spare parts I bought for it, not including any tools, because I didn't have to buy a lot of tools actually, most of them were second hand what I did buy, and I already owned a lot of things, but I think I probably spent around about £750–800 on this in total, which sounds like quite a lot of money, doesn't it? Well, it is quite a lot of money, but the way I look at it, I was just saying to my wife the other day, when you think about how much you spend eating out and going out and things like that, £800 over 7 months isn't actually a lot of money really. I'm still glad I bought it, like I said before, and I don't really have any regrets, like I said before. I'm still pleased I own it, and I did actually spend that kind of money on it to get it working. It was certainly worth it in the end. One thing to bear in mind if you're thinking about going down the road of buying one of these old computers, even if you already own one, things can still go wrong even once you've repaired one thing. I could turn this on one day and find out something else has gone wrong with it. They are a going concern, so be prepared to spend some money on them. So you've seen it in action and working now, which leaves just one last thing, the famous blue bezel. As you can see, I still haven't got a bezel for it. I searched high and low on eBay, I've been keeping it in my safe searches for pet parts and stuff like that, but sadly one's not come along yet. When they do come up for sale, they do actually command quite a lot of money, quite rightly so. Obviously it's quite a rare item, but it's an amount of money that I couldn't justify on spending something like that, certainly not in this situation. If the computer was immaculate, then I probably could justify spending that kind of money. So I thought to myself, it's a fixed rock computer, why don't I try and make one myself? I've got another Pet upstairs that I can take the dimensions from. It's got a black bezel in it. I thought to myself, if I get that black bezel out, I could take a moulding of it and try and cast myself another one. But the plastic bezel on that one is riveted in on the back, so you can't actually get it out without breaking off the stanchions, unfortunately. So I took some dimensions from it and decided to make one out of MDF. Unfortunately though, the casing on this is slightly smaller than my other Pet upstairs. So, in a true Blue Peter style, here's one I made earlier. And there we go. A blue bezel, and I even managed to find a similar colour paint for it as well. I've made it out of MDF. There's 3 layers there of MDF. Took all the dimensions from the one upstairs like I said, but the outer part was slightly smaller for this Pet here. I took it, I cut that out with the jigsaw, then I went over it with my router table, and I kept on filing it until I could get as close to shape as to the original as possible. It's not perfect, but to me it's better than no bezel at all. So let's see what it looks like on. There we go. Doesn't that look better? Certainly better than no bezel at all. So let's see what some gameplay looks like on it, shall we? And see it actually in action. I'm going to load up one of my personal favourites, Space Invaders. Going to be using my external data cassette there because the internal one is okay on very short programs, but anything a little bit longer it doesn't seem to like it, I get errors. This is actually the second version of Space Invaders I've installed on this. The first one said version 4.0 and it doesn't run properly. I get the image up on the screen of the speaker setup you can add to add sound. When I hit the spacebar to play the game, I just get a blank screen. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but this version does work. And it does look exactly the same as the other version as well. There we are, so ready. Get it on. Now that's the speaker image I get up on the other version of this game. So once I hit the spacebar, it doesn't go any further, but on this one it does. Well, I think that just about brings me to the end of this video, and indeed the end of the series for this Commodore Pet, at least for now. I'm quite happy with the way it is at this moment in time. I just want to enjoy it for a bit before I consider doing anything else to it, if anything at all. It's been quite a stressful journey along the way, like I said before, but I got there in the end. Well, I guess that just leaves me to say, as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll be seeing you. And if you did enjoy watching this video, you may want to take a look at some of my other videos on similar themes. I'm always buying something on eBay, some more piece of technology, and trying to repair it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.